The key clicked sharply in the lock, a metallic shriek that cut through the suffocating silence of our apartment. It was nearly midnight. The sound, though small, carried an unusual weight that night, a harbinger of something inevitable. Then the door burst open. Gloria, my wife, stepped inside, a manic giggle escaping her lips. Her usual composed demeanor was absent, replaced by something wild, reckless, an energy that crackled in the dim light. Her eyes, once soft and warm, gleamed with an unsettling glee. "Late meeting," she chirped, the words wrapped in a cheerfulness so forced it grated against my nerves. The scent of expensive cologne clung to her skin, a scent foreign to her, to our modest life, to everything I knew of her. I had known for months. The late nights, the hurried phone calls, the subtle shift in her laughter, in the way she touched me, distant, absent. The insidious tendrils of infidelity had woven themselves into the fabric of our marriage, turning every intimate moment into a lie. I had spent sleepless nights staring at the ceiling, wrestling with the truth that had clawed at my gut. And yet I had clung to hope, foolish and desperate, convincing myself that Gloria, my rock, my best friend, would not do this to me. But that laughter, that brittle, hollow laughter shattered the last illusions I had stubbornly held on to. It confirmed everything. My plan had been in motion for weeks. This was never about rage, never about some pathetic outburst of wounded masculinity. No, my revenge would be far more devastating. It would be meticulous, precise, a slow, deliberate unraveling of everything she held dear. On the kitchen counter, amidst the usual clutter of mail and bills, sat a single manila envelope. Plain, unassuming, almost invisible against the chaos of our everyday life. And yet it contained everything. Inside, nestled between layers of folded newspaper, was the culmination of my weeks of quiet torment, a dossier so damning, so irrefutable, that it would leave no room for excuses or denial. I had been thorough. I had followed her discreetly, obtained a legally sanctioned warrant to monitor her phone calls, combed through her emails with painstaking patience. The evidence was overwhelming. Text messages dripping with stolen affections. Hotel receipts marking every betrayal. Photographs that captured, with cruel clarity, the reality I had once refused to see. A chilling chronicle of her deception, laid out in black and white. Her laughter died in her throat. The manic energy drained from her, leaving behind a hollow shell. Her gaze locked onto the envelope, fear flickering behind her carefully constructed facade. She reached for it, her hands trembling. I didn't stop her. Her breath hitched as she unfolded the newspaper, revealing the damning document beneath. Her eyes widened, first in disbelief, then in horror. The meticulously crafted timeline laid bare the extent of her betrayal. No embellishments, no theatrics, just the brutal, unfiltered truth. Every name, every date, every whispered promise exchanged in the shadows. The casual, almost clinical tone in which I had written the report only amplified its cruelty, stripping away any romanticized illusions she had spun around her affair. There were no justifications left for her to cling to, no sweet lies to soften the impact. She read in silence, her face contorting, a grotesque blend of shock, guilt, and something deeper, something closer to terror. The color drained from her lips. Her body swayed, unsteady, before she collapsed onto the floor, the manila envelope clutched desperately in her hands. The laughter was gone. A guttural sob tore through the air, raw and unrestrained, filling the apartment with the sound of something breaking. Not just her, but us, the life we had built, the love we had once shared. I watched her, my chest heavy with a twisted blend of grief and vindication. This wasn't the satisfaction I had envisioned. There was no triumphant surge of justice. Only a profound sense of loss. The woman I had loved, the woman I had believed in, had been a stranger all along. The following days unfolded like a slow, inevitable collapse. The dossier was not merely a collection of evidence. It was a carefully orchestrated detonation. Anonymous copies found their way to the right hands. Her employer, her closest friends, her parents. The fallout was immediate and merciless. Her prestigious job, the one she had always boasted about, crumbled beneath the weight of the scandal. The careful image she had curated, of success, of perfection, was shattered, reduced to whispers and scandalous murmurs. The man she had betrayed me with, a married man, was thrust into the storm as well, his own family tearing apart beneath the weight of his deception. Her parents, once so proud, looked at her now with something colder than anger, disappointment, heartbreak, disgust. The golden daughter they had adored had become a pariah. The invitation stopped. The social circle that had once embraced her now turned away, leaving her adrift in the wreckage of her choices. I did not relish watching her world collapse. There was no joy in it, no pleasure in her suffering. Only a sickening sense of finality. The death of something I had once cherished. The legal proceedings were swift. She fought, of course, desperate to salvage whatever remnants of her life she could. But the evidence was insurmountable. The divorce papers were signed with the cold efficiency of a transaction, a punctuation mark at the end of a tragic story. When it was over, I did not celebrate. There was no relief, no victory. Only emptiness. A hollow ache where love had once lived. I left the apartment soon after, walking away from the ghosts of our past. I sold everything, severing every last tie to the life we had shared. But the pain lingered, a dull throb beneath my ribs, a reminder of what had been lost. Not just a marriage, but the illusion of the person I had loved. The path forward was slow, agonizing. There were days when the weight of grief threatened to crush me, nights when silence felt unbearable. But amidst the wreckage, a flicker of something new began to stir. Hope. Hope that I could rebuild. Hope that I could love again, trust again. Not despite the pain, but because of it. Because of the lessons it had carved into me. The laughter had stopped. But in its absence, a quiet strength had begun to grow. And step by step, I would find my way back to the light.